Async and await in the task based asynchronous programming, because when the TAP was introduced, it was .NET 4.5 and the C# 5.0. So with the .NET 4.5 and the C# 5.0, the Microsoft also introduced the async and await keyword to simplify the asynchronous programming. If you look at in the previous example, we have written the things with the help of task-based programming for writing the asynchronous method. Now let's say the same methods how we can simplify further with the help of async and await keyword. Before that, let's understand the role of the async keyword. So async keyword turns a method into asynchronous method, which allows to use the await keyword inside its body. It means to use the await keyword, make sure you have created that method as async with the help of async keyword. So what the await keyword is doing, await keyword actually suspend the calling of the method and yield a control back to its caller function until the awaited task is completed. So what is happening over there, when we create a method asynchronous with the help of async keyword, so inside that method body we can use await keyword. So the await keyword is not waiting till finishing the execution of that code. Await keyword only suspending the calling method, and when the task would be completed, it will come back to the calling function, or you can say the calling method, and tell here that now the task has been completed. Because if you remembered in the previous example, we have used the wait keyword, we have used the get awaiter and the get result method over there. So that wait method is actually waiting to complete that asynchronous method execution. But here you don't need to wait to complete the asynchronous method execution. Further, you can execute the next set of statements. And even one more thing you should understand here, the async and await keywords does not cause additional threads to be created to execute the code. Means they don't create a additional thread for executing the asynchronous method over there. And the example here we can start taking, let's say the employee class, which we are taking from the first sample. So if you look at here, we can simply create get data async method, and you have to just decorate it with the async keyword over there. Now it is a asynchronous method, and inside this method we can use the await keyword for executing a network call operation. Let's say you are calling some API, you might be performing some database operation. Their await will help us to complete the things. In the next video, I will show you here how we can use the async and await keyword to simplify the asynchronous programming further. Demo for async and await. Now let's understand the uses of async and await with the help of a real life example. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to create a new project. Again, I'm creating a console application, and I'm just defining here async and await sample. This is my project name. And what I will do here, let's say I'm just going to create a employee class as B has taken in the example. So public class employee, and here let's say we are returning here the employee information, and I'm just using here async, and it would be here a asynchronous method. So it will return here the data as in a string format. So get data async. So as a best practice, you should keep here async as a suffix so that you will understand it is a asynchronous method. Let's add the missing namespace system.threading.tasks. So now I will use here a HTTP client, because obviously we will have a API. So here we don't have the API. So what I will use here, I will use the JSON placeholder website. So from the JSON placeholder website, we can read the to-do data. The to-do data I'm considering as a data we have been with respect to an employee. So let me create here the HTTP client class object. It is a well-known class we use for calling the REST API in the .NET based application. So I'm using here new HTTP client. Let me create the URI, API address. So I'm just using here API address. So new URI, and let me define the AP address. So I'm using here the JSON placeholder to do. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to open here the JSON placeholder. So this is the URL where it will return the data to us. So it's a to do data. I'm getting over there for user ID 1, then this is the title, this is the completed, it's a to do data. So this is the API. I'm just going to call here. Let me use this one as API address. So this would be my API address like this way. And here let me create a task. I'm just creating here a task equal to, let me call here client. So sorry, it's a spelling mistake. I'm using a client, then call this API. So by passing the API address, I'm just going to call it over there. So it is actually returning the awaitable task. So to get the result from this API address, we need to use here await. I'm using here await so that we will get the result. Now what are the result we will get? We will check out over there. If task dot is success status code, if it is responding properly, obviously we will get the success status code. Let's say 200, let's say 201. So now what are the data we are getting from this URI? The data we will read now. So let me read the data. So it would be a data, then it would be a task dot content, then I'm reading as a string async like this way. And here also I'm just going to await for the reading the data over there, await, and finally return it here, return data. If let's say we are not getting the status code as 200, so let's say I'm returning here null as a return type over there. So what we have done, wherever we are making the network call, so this is the call for calling the API. Here I'm just using here await keyword so that we can terminate here the execution of this asynchronous method call, and we will wait for getting the result from this API call. So when this API call would be succeeded, it will resume the execution from the same point again, and it will start executing the if statement. Same things happening over there. We are just going to call. So same things happening here. We are just going to read the content from this return task as a string, and finally we are assigning the data, and the data we are returning over there. But this operation is non-blocking. It is not freezing your UI, because when you will use it in the UI, it is not freezing it. It's a non-blocking call. About the blocking and non-blocking call, I will explain the next sample. So let's do focus on how the await and the async keyword we can use for calling our REST API. Now this method I can call in my main method over there. So what I'm doing here I'm just calling it. So let me create the employee class object. So emp equal to new employee class object I'm creating here. Now again where task, I can get the data. So it would be here emp dot get data async, and here to retrieve the data from there, let's use here await, because it's a asynchronous method. And when you are using the await, make sure the calling method is also async. So let me make it async here, otherwise I cannot use the await keyword over there. Then I can show the result. So console dot write line. Now finally I will get the data. So if you look at here, I'm not using here task dot result. If you remembered in the previous example what we have done with the method async1 with the method async2, we used over there result. But here we are not using the result, because this await keyword will help us to provide the result after the successful execution of this asynchronous method. So that's why I'm not mentioning here result. But if I will not mention here await keyword and this async, I need to use here the result. I will show you. So let's see how it is working. Let's execute the program. Okay, one more thing we missed here. It should be here task based. So it is giving the error because we didn't make it task. Its return type is void. It should not be the void as a return type. It should be the task as a return type now because we are returning the task here. Now let's execute. Now you can see I'm getting here data. So perfectly we are able to read the data from there. So this is the way user ID 1 we are coming. It said just to do data to understand the things over there. Now let's say I'm not keeping here await. What will happen? Now when you don't need to make it async. So you can see what I'm getting here. I'm getting here system runtime, async task builder. So I'm just getting here a generics. I'm not getting the proper result over there. So to get the result, what I need to use here, I need to use the result property over there as we used before also. Let me execute it here. Now I'm getting the result. But here if you don't want to block the execution, because when you will call the result, so what is happening, it will wait for executing this complete operation, because as a best practice we use the result over there, let's say like this result. Then I don't need to mention the things. So the result we are using over there as we have used in the previous example. This is the one. So this is just like a synchronous call. So method is asynchronous over there, but I'm calling it just like a synchronous fashion. But if you want to call it here completely in asynchronous fashion, so don't use this style. Always use the await keyword to call it in asynchronous style like this. Now it is asynchronous. So this would be a synchronous call for this method. Now this is an asynchronous call. So one more thing you should remember here, this is a synchronous call only for this method. This method internally is going to be executed in asynchronous fashion because both the execution are separated over there. So it's a asynchronous method, but I'm calling it here in synchronous fashion. So this is the way how you can call it in the synchronous fashion. But the recommended practice is here, you should call it always in asynchronous fashion. So here in the C#, a asynchronous method call can be converted into the synchronous by calling this result property over there. But if you want to make it asynchronous, means non-blocking, use the await keyword. So now it simplified the things a lot when we have used the async and await keyword. So now similar way I can call here our real REST API. Even I can perform my database operation also. When you are going to add the data into the database using the entity framework core, and whenever you are retrieving the data from the database using the entity framework core.